Hi, I wanted to go ahead and talk about just a few very basic things in Adobe Lightroom. Now, you can use a photo editing software that you are comfortable with. In the past, I used Photoshop a lot, and Photoshop is great for manipulation. But if I just want to do basic things like making my photograph look, brighter or more saturated or crop it, Lightroom is a whole lot more basic and user friendly, I should say. So I am actually using if I look in my Creative Cloud, I have Lightroom and I have Lightroom Classic. I'm using Lightroom. I prefer the layout of this, but of course, if you are interested in learning more about Classic, there are lots of YouTube videos that can help you out. So the first thing is I open Lightroom and this is what I have. So I'm going to click on this little tab up in the left. It looks like a menu. And I'm going to add photos because none of the pictures that I have loaded here are what I want to use. So I'm going to click add photos, maybe. And I'm going to find the images that I want to use. I'll hit review for import. All right. They are HEIC files. That means these were taken on an iPhone. Throughout the semester, I will try to mention the differences between the different file formats. If you're using a DSLR, a lot of the times you're going to be importing JPEGs. If you can shoot in RAW, that is going to be your best friend when you edit. So again, you can't do that on a phone, but you can do that on a DSLR. So I'm going to add the 3 photos. And now we have some photos that I'm going to look at to edit. And you'll see this is really zoomed in. So it's not quite so scary, quite so pixelated when I zoom out. We have this picture, which I think of as overlapping shape in our first assignment. But you can see I have the reflection of myself in the pond. So I'm not super happy about that. This is certainly one I could use for movement. This is also another great example of overlapping shape. I'm going to edit this first one. So again, I don't have to worry about all of this right off the bat. I'm going to go over now to this toggle. It's 3 lines with circles on them. If I click on that, it's my edit button, which is what I want to be doing. So you can see I have a histogram, and that shows me how light and color are distributed throughout my picture. Now, of course, there is an auto button, right? I can hit auto, and it will automatically do some adjustments for me. You know, some people love doing that, but usually I find that's not enough. I could also hit black and white if I wanted to keep it monochrome, but I don't. Again, I can I'm going to hit, for me, I hit Command Z and I go backwards. I can also look at presets. If I click on edit, Lightroom has already come up with a series of photograph settings that I can apply to my picture. So my original photograph, it was kind of a dull, dreary day, and you can see that in the reflection. But if I really want to highlight the differences between shape, you can see that there's a whole selection of filters that have already been created for me, right? And oh, that one's kind of nice with the moodiness to it. And you can see there are different tags, things that are subtle, things that are strong. I tend to like strong filters, but it depends on the day. And so you can see, again, I can keep playing with all of these different filters. We are not going to, right now, I'm not going to use a preset, but I certainly encourage you to play around with it. And I'm going to exit out of that just for the moment. You can see that I have quite a bit of information. I'm not going to go over every single thing in this menu right now, but You know, again, I can see that it's in color. Okay, I want it to be in color. The first thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at the light button today. Woohoo, as I switch pictures. That's what happens when you scroll really quickly. These adjustments have already been made for me with that auto, but say that I want to increase or decrease my exposure. What that means again is typically how long you are exposing your photograph to light. It's my really simple version of that answer. Typically, I don't want things to be overexposed or underexposed because they lose image quality. But you know, again, I might be playing that up intentionally or unintentionally. I'm gonna bump it just a tiny bit. And then contrast, again, you can see is going to tell me, you know, between my lights and my dark values, what, like how dramatic they are. I'm going to bump it a little bit. I'm going to up the contrast. Now, the only danger you have, well, a couple dangers you have when you up the contrast so much is that you will end up flattening your picture potentially. And you can see highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. And again, highlights, meaning the where the light is hitting in my photograph. If I want it really light or really dark, I can slide that around. Shadows, right, where those darker values are in my photograph. I'm going to keep them. I'm going to keep them here. Whites, I can really play that up, or I can really take them away. I actually kind of like removing some of the white in this photograph, so I'm going to take them away. And then black, again, same thing. If I take away some of those black values, you can see, remember how I had that really dramatic background and foreground, and that's what's starting to happen here. You'll also see a tone curve, and you'll see different, you can see different circles that are associated with it. If I click on a circle, this is my point curve, and these are different color values. So I'm not going to get super in depth with this right now. But again, you see what it's doing? Look at that histogram at the very top up here. When I adjust the point curve, I am automatically adjusting the distribution of value and of color within the photograph itself. So you can see it on the screen. Don't want it to be this dark, but I can also see it on the histogram on the left. So I'm going to, again, depending on what effect I want, like this to me is not a good example of an edited photograph. It's really blown out. It's really hard to see what the subject is. Same thing on the opposite end of the spectrum. This is really dark. It's really hard to see what's there. I'm gonna go for a dramatic, moody effect. Let's see if we can do it without overkill here. I'm gonna leave it just a little bit under that point curve. And I can click on the same thing with my colors. So you see my reds, woohoo, and now we've turned into this apocalyptic wasteland here. I can go through and you see, I just added, this is really trippy right now. I just added another point. Just by clicking that plus sign, I can add points and that'll even change up what color or what shape something is. Now, I'm going to go back because I don't need this many points right now. And I don't want it to be red, but I might try and bump a little bit of blue in there. Let's try. Let's try. It's really blue. So anyways, you can see how I can have some fun with this, and maybe I decide, ooh, I don't like this. Again, I can go back. I'm hitting, really, there's a menu bar that says edit, undo up at the top. My shortcut is Command Z. Greens, I'm gonna leave them alone for now, but blues, again, This is the true blue. The one that was here is more of a cyan color. So if you remember some of those really dramatic filters, I'm going to add a little bit of blue into that background to try and kind of bump up some visual interest here. So again, I could be adding points. I could lower this one down if I wanted it to, or I can move it over, get real weird with it. So you can see, again, I can literally spend hours editing something. I'm going to make it just a little bit more dramatic, maybe. And then I have the tone curve. So again, this is giving me, you see in the bottom right corner of this tone, it'll say highlights, it'll say lights, it'll say darks. And that is, remember how we adjusted things like highlights and shadows? And again, you look at that histogram up at the top right, this is telling me, again, how balanced my image is. So this is another way to manipulate light. So that was my light curve. And then you can see where the darks are falling. If I want to shift that a little bit, I can. Anyways, you get the idea that I can play around, and I can move my curve by selecting these images at the bottom. So far I've talked about the light and the tone curve, and you can see from the beginning, we have a very, very different photograph than what we originally had.